Negotiation is a dialogue between two or more people or parties intended to reach a beneficial outcome. This beneficial outcome can be for all of the parties involved, or just for one or some of them. It is aimed to resolve points of difference, to gain advantage for an individual or collective, or to craft outcomes to satisfy various interests. It is often conducted by putting forward a position and making small concessions to achieve an agreement. The degree to which the negotiating parties trust each other to implement the negotiated solution is a major factor in determining whether negotiations are successful. Negotiation is not a zero-sum game. If there is no cooperation, the negotiation will fail. Everyone negotiates every day, often without even considering it a negotiation. Negotiation occurs in business, sales, non-profit organizations, government branches, legal proceedings, among nations, and in personal situations such as marriage, divorce, parenting, etc. The study of the subject is called negotiation theory. Professional negotiators are often specialized, such as union negotiators, leverage buyout negotiators, peace negotiator, or hostage negotiators. They may also work under other titles, such as diplomats, legislators, or brokers. Strategies. Negotiation can take a wide variety of forms, from a trained negotiator acting on behalf of a particular organization or position in a formal setting, to an informal negotiation between friends. Negotiation can be contrasted with mediation, where a neutral third party listens to each side's arguments and attempts to help craft an agreement between the parties. It can also be compared with arbitration, which resembles a legal proceeding. In arbitration, both sides make an argument as to the merits of the case and the arbitrator decides the outcome. This negotiation is also sometimes called positional or hard bargaining negotiation. Negotiation theorists generally distinguish between two types of negotiation. Different theorists use different labels for the two general types and distinguish them in different ways. One very common distinction concerns the distribution of gains. Distributive negotiation. Distributive negotiation is also sometimes called positional or hard bargaining negotiation. It tends to approach negotiation on the model of haggling in a market. In a distributive negotiation, each side often adopts an extreme position, knowing that it will not be accepted, and then employs a combination of guile, bluffing, and brinkmanship in order to cede as little as possible before reaching a deal. Distributive bargainers conceive of negotiation as a process of distributing a fixed amount of value. The term distributive implies that there is a finite amount of the thing being distributed or divided among the people involved. It operates under zero-sum conditions, and it means any gain I make is at your expense and vice versa. Sometimes this type of negotiation is referred to as the distribution of a fixed pie. There is only so much to go around, but the proportion to be distributed is variable. Distributive negotiation is also sometimes called win-lose because of the assumption that one person's gain results in another person's loss. A distributive negotiation often involves people who have never had a previous interactive relationship, nor are they likely to do so again in the near future. Simple everyday examples would be buying a car or a house. Integrative negotiation. Integrative negotiation is also called interest-based, merit-based, or principled negotiation. It is a set of techniques that attempts to improve the quality and likelihood of negotiated agreement by providing an alternative to traditional distributive negotiation techniques. While distributive negotiation assumes there is is a fixed amount of value to be divided between the parties. Integrative negotiation often attempts to create value in the course of the negotiation. It focuses on the underlying interests of the parties rather than their arbitrary starting positions. Approaches negotiation as a shared problem rather than a personalized battle, and insists upon adherence to objective, principled criteria as the basis for agreement. Integrative negotiation often involves a higher degree of trust and the forming of a relationship. It can also involve creative problem-solving that aims to achieve mutual gains. It is also sometimes called win-win negotiation. Elements of negotiation. There are many different ways to categorize the essential elements of negotiation. One view of negotiation involves three basic elements: process, behavior, and substance. The process refers to how the parties negotiate, the context of the negotiations, the parties to the negotiations, the tactics used by the parties, and the sequence and stages in which all of these play out. Behavior refers to the relationships among these parties, the communication between them, and the styles they adopt. The substance refers to what the parties negotiate over, the agenda, the issues, the options, and the agreement reached at the end. Another view of negotiation comprises four elements: strategy, process, tools, and tactics. Strategy comprises the top-level goals, typically including relationship and the final outcome. Processes and tools include the steps that will be followed and the roles taken in both preparing for and negotiating with the other parties. Tactics include more detailed statements and actions and responses to others' statements and actions. Some add to this persuasion and influence, asserting that these have become integral to modern-day negotiation success, and so should not be omitted. Adversary or partner. The two basically different approaches to negotiating will require different tactics. In the distributive approach, each negotiator is battling for the largest possible piece of the pie, so it may be quite appropriate, within certain limits, to regard the other side more as an adversary than a partner and to take a somewhat harder line. This would, however, be less appropriate if the idea were to hammer out an arrangement that is in the best interest of both sides. A good agreement is not one with maximum gain, but optimum gain. This does not by any means suggest that we should give up our own advantage for nothing, but a cooperative attitude will regularly pay dividends. What is gained is not at the expense of the other, but with him. Employing an advocate. A skilled negotiator may serve as an advocate for one party to the negotiation. The advocate attempts to obtain the most favorable outcomes possible for that party. In this process, the negotiator attempts to determine the minimum outcome the other party is willing to accept, then adjusts the demands accordingly. A successful negotiation in the advocacy approach is when the negotiator is able to obtain all or most of the outcomes the party desires, but without driving the other party to permanently break off negotiations, unless the best alternative to a negotiated agreement is acceptable. Skilled negotiators may use a variety of tactics ranging from negotiation hypnosis to a straightforward presentation of demands or setting of preconditions, to more deceptive approaches such as cherry-picking. Intimidation and salami tactics may also play a part in swaying the outcome of negotiations. Another negotiation tactic is bad guy, good guy. Bad guy, good guy is when one negotiator acts as a bad guy by using anger and threats. The other negotiator acts as a good guy by being considerate and understanding. The good guy blames the bad guy for all the difficulties while trying to get concessions and agreement from the opponent. Perspective taking. For integrative negotiation, perspective taking can be helpful for two reasons: that it can help self-centered negotiators to seek mutually beneficial solutions, and it increases the likelihood of log rolling. Social motivation can increase the chances of a party conceding to a negotiation. While concession is mandatory for negotiations, research shows that people who concede more quickly are less likely to explore all integrative and mutually beneficial solutions. Therefore, conceding reduces the chance of an integrative negotiation. Negotiation styles. Kenneth W. Thomas identified 5 styles, responses to negotiation. These 5 strategies have been frequently described in the literature and are based on the dual concern model. The dual concern model of conflict resolution is a perspective that assumes individuals' preferred method of dealing with conflict is based on 2 themes or dimensions: a concern for self, and a concern for others. Based on this model, individuals balance the concern for personal needs and interests with the needs and interests of others. The following 5 styles can be used based on individuals' preferences depending on the pro-self or pro-social goals. These styles can change over time, and individuals can have strong dispositions towards numerous styles. Accommodating individuals who enjoy solving the other party's problems and preserving personal relationships. Accommodators are sensitive to the emotional states, body language, and verbal signals of the other parties. They can, however, feel taken advantage of in situations when the other party places little emphasis on the relationship. Avoiding individuals who do not like to negotiate and don't do it unless warranted. When negotiating, avoiders tend to defer and dodge the confrontational aspects of negotiating. However, they may be perceived as tactful and diplomatic. Collaborating individuals who enjoy negotiations that involve solving tough problems in creative ways. Collaborators are good at using negotiations to understand the concerns and interests of the other parties. They can, however, create problems by transforming simple situations into more complex ones. Competing individuals who enjoy negotiations because they present an opportunity to win something. Competitive negotiators have strong instincts for all aspects of negotiating and are often strategic. Because the style can dominate the bargaining process, competitive negotiators often neglect the importance of relationships. Compromising individuals who are eager to close the deal by doing what is fair and equal for all parties involved in the negotiation. Compromises can be useful when there is limited time to complete the deal. However, compromises often unnecessarily rush the negotiation process and make concessions too quickly. Types of negotiators. 3 basic kinds of negotiators have been identified by researchers involved in the Harvard Negotiation Project. These types of negotiators are soft bargainers, hard bargainers, and principled bargainers. Soft. These people see negotiation as too close to competition, so they choose a gentle style of bargaining. The offers they make are not in the best interests, they yield to others' demands, avoid confrontation, and they maintain good relations with fellow negotiators. The perception of others is one of friendship, and the goal is agreement. They do not separate the people from the problem, but are soft on both. They avoid contests of wills and will insist on agreement, offering solutions and easily trusting others and changing their opinions. Hard. These people use contentious strategies to influence, utilizing phrases such as "this is my final offer" and "take it or leave it." Quote, They make threats, are distrustful of others, insist on the position, and apply pressure to negotiate. They see others as adversaries and their ultimate goal is victory. Additionally, they will search for one single answer, and insist you agree on it. They do not separate the people from the problem, but they are hard on both the people involved and the problem. Principled. Individuals who bargain this way seek integrative solutions, and thus by sidestepping commitment to specific positions, they focus on the problem rather than the intentions, motives, and needs of the people involved. They separate the people from the problem, explore interests, avoid bottom lines, and reach results based on standards. They base their choices on objective criteria rather than power, pressure, self-interest, or an arbitrary decisional procedure. These criteria may be drawn from moral standards, principles of fairness, professional standards, tradition, and so on. Researchers from the Harvard Negotiation Project recommend that negotiators explore a number of alternatives to the problems they are facing in order to come to the best overall solution. But this is often not the case. Bad faith negotiation. When a party pretends to negotiate, but secretly has no intention of compromising, the party is considered to be negotiating in bad faith. Bad faith is a concept in negotiation theory whereby parties pretend to reason to reach settlement, but have no intention to do so. For example, one political party may pretend to negotiate with no intention to compromise for political effect. In international relations and political psychology, bad faith in political science and political psychology refers to negotiating strategies in which there is no real intention to reach compromise, or a model of information processing. The inherent bad faith model of information processing is a theory in political psychology that was first put forth by Ole Holsti to explain the relationship between John Foster Dulles' beliefs and his model of information processing. It is the most widely studied model of one's opponent. A state is presumed to be implacably hostile, and contraindicators of this are ignored. They are dismissed as propaganda ploys or signs of weakness. Examples are John Foster Dulles' position regarding the Soviet Union, or Hamas's position on the State of Israel. Emotions play an important part in the negotiation process, although it is only in recent years that their effect is being studied. Emotions have the potential to play either a positive or negative role in negotiation. During negotiations, the decision as to whether or not to settle rests in part on emotional factors. Negative emotions can cause intense and even or irrational behavior, and can cause conflicts to escalate and negotiations to break down, but may be instrumental in attaining concessions. On the other hand, positive emotions often facilitate reaching an agreement and help to maximize joint gains, but can also be instrumental in attaining concessions. Positive and negative discrete emotions can be strategically displayed to influence task and relational outcomes, and may play out differently across cultural boundaries. Affect dispositional effects affect the various stages of the negotiation process. Which strategies are planned to be used, which strategies are actually chosen, the way the other party and his or her intentions are perceived, the willingness to reach an agreement, and the final negotiated outcomes. Positive effectivity and negative effectivity of one or more of the negotiating sides can lead to very different outcomes. Positive effect. Even before the negotiation process starts, people in a positive mood have more confidence and high tendencies to plan to use a cooperative strategy. During the negotiation, negotiators who are in a positive mood tend to enjoy the interaction more, show less contentious behavior, use less aggressive tactics and more cooperative strategies. This in turn increases the likelihood that parties will reach their instrumental goals, and enhance the ability to find integrative gains. Indeed, compared with negotiators with negative or natural effectivity, negotiators with positive effectivity reached more agreements and tended to honor those agreements more. Those favorable outcomes are due to better decision-making processes, such as flexible thinking, creative problem-solving, respect for others' perspectives, willingness to take risks and higher confidence. Post-negotiation positive effect has beneficial consequences as well. It increases satisfaction with achieved outcome and influences one's desire for future interactions. The PA aroused by reaching an agreement facilitates the dyadic relationship, which result in effective commitment that sets the stage for subsequent interactions. PA also has its drawbacks. It distorts perception of self-performance, such that performance is judged to be relatively better than it actually is. Thus, studies involving self-reports on achieved outcomes might be biased. Negative effect. Negative effect has detrimental effects on various stages in the negotiation process. Although various negative emotions affect negotiation outcomes, by far the most researched is anger. Angry negotiators plan to use more competitive strategies and to cooperate less, even before the negotiation starts. These competitive strategies are related to reduced joint outcomes. During negotiations, anger disrupts the process by reducing the level of trust, clouding parties' judgment, narrowing parties' focus of attention, and changing the central goal from reaching agreement to retaliating against the other side. Angry negotiators pay less attention to opponents' interests and are less accurate in judging their interests, thus achieve lower joint gains. Moreover, because anger makes negotiators more self-centered in the preferences, it increases the likelihood that they will reject profitable offers. Opponents who get really angry are more likely to make errors. Make sure they are in your favor. Anger does not help in achieving negotiation goals either. It reduces joint gains and does not help to boost personal gains, as angry negotiators do not succeed in claiming more for themselves. Moreover, negative emotions lead to acceptance of settlements that are not in the positive utility function but rather have a negative utility. However, expression of negative emotions during negotiation can sometimes be beneficial. Legitimately expressed anger can be an effective way to show one's commitment, sincerity, and needs. Moreover, although NA reduces gains in integrative tasks, it is a better strategy than PA in distributive tasks. In his work on negative affect arousal and white noise, Seidner found support for the existence of a negative affect arousal mechanism through observations regarding the devaluation of speakers from other ethnic origins. Negotiation may be negatively affected, in turn, by submerged hostility toward an ethnic agenda group. Conditions for emotion effect research indicates that negotiators' emotions do not necessarily affect the negotiation process. Albarracin et al. Suggested that there are two conditions for emotional effect, both related to the ability and the motivation. Identification of the effect requires high motivation, high ability or both. Determination that the effect is relevant and important for the judgment requires that either the motivation, the ability or both are low. According to this model, emotions are expected to affect negotiations only when one is high and the other is low. When both ability and motivation are low, the effect will not be identified, and when both are high, the effect will be identified but discounted as irrelevant for judgment. A possible implication of this model is, for example, that the positive effects PA has on negotiations will be seen only when either motivation or ability are low. Affective partners' emotions. Most studies on emotion in negotiations focus on the effect of the negotiator's own emotions on the process. However, what the other party feels might be just as important, as group emotions are known to affect processes both at the group and the personal levels. When it comes to negotiations, trust in the other party is a necessary condition for its emotion to affect, and visibility enhances the effect. Emotions contribute to negotiation processes by signaling what one feels and thinks, and can thus prevent the other party from engaging in destructive behaviors and to indicate what steps should be taken next. PA signals to keep in the same way, while NA points that mental or behavioral adjustments are needed. Partners' emotions can have two basic effects on negotiators' emotions and behavior: mimetic, reciprocal or complementary. For example, disappointment or sadness might lead to compassion and more cooperation. In a study by Butt et al., which simulated real multi-phase negotiation, most people reacted to the partner's emotions in reciprocal, rather than complementary, manner. Specific emotions were found to have different effects on the opponent's feelings and strategies chosen. Anger caused the opponents to place lower demands and to concede more in a zero-sum negotiation, but also to evaluate the negotiation less favorably. It provoked both dominating and yielding behaviors of the opponent. Pride led to more integrative and compromise strategies by the partner. Guilt or regret expressed by the negotiator led to better impression of him by the opponent. However, it also led the opponent to place higher demands. On the other hand, personal guilt was related to more satisfaction with what one achieved. Worry or disappointment left bad impression on the opponent, but led to relatively lower demands by the opponent. Problems with laboratory studies. Negotiation is a rather complex interaction. Capturing all its complexity is a very difficult task, let alone isolating and controlling only certain aspects of it. For this reason, most negotiation studies are done under laboratory conditions, and focus only on some aspects. Although lab studies have their advantages, they do have major drawbacks when studying emotions. Emotions in lab studies are usually manipulated and therefore relatively cold. Although those cold emotions might be enough to show effects, they are qualitatively different from the hot emotions often experienced during negotiations. In real life, there is self-selection to which negotiation one gets into, which affects the emotional commitment, motivation and interests. However, this is not the case in lab studies. Lab studies tend to focus on relatively few well-defined emotions. Real-life scenarios provoke a much wider scale of emotions. Coding the emotions has a double catch. If done by a third side, some emotions might not be detected as the negotiator sublimates them for strategic reasons. Self-report measures might overcome this, but they are usually filled only before or after the process, and if filled during the process might interfere with it. Team negotiations. Due to globalization and growing business trends, negotiation in the form of teams is becoming widely adopted. Teams can effectively collaborate to break down a complex negotiation. There is more knowledge and wisdom dispersed in a team than in a single mind. Writing, listening, and talking are specific roles team members must satisfy. The capacity base of a team reduces the amount of blunder, and increases familiarity in a negotiation. Etymology. The word negotiation originated in the early 15th century from the Old French and Latin expressions negotiation and negotiation. These terms mean business, trade and traffic. By the late 1590s, negotiation had the definition to communicate in search of mutual agreement. With this new introduction and this meaning, it showed a shift in doing business to bargaining about business. Barriers. Die-hard bargainers. Lack of trust. Informational vacuums and negotiators' dilemma. Structural impediments. Spoilers. Cultural and gender differences. Communication problems. The power of dialogue.